couldn't start on my car, and I lost the key fob somewhere. It like went away, and so my car got stuck in Puyallup for 2 hours.
Oh.
Well, I had someone bring me a new key fob so I could actually start the car. So was the charity run?
A little bit over 300.
Mm-hmm.
In other years, it's been a little bit more.
Oh, hello. Hi. Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Welcome to the Scream. I hope you all are doing well tonight. Let me turn this music down just a little bit. How's the music levels out there for everybody? Okay. I think we're live on this one.
I think so.
Yeah. Welcome to our initial stream of Angel City Stories, which is not the actual live play, but it's kind of another lore episode. And joining us tonight to talk about lore and fun and IDENTECO and RPGs all up is Caleb G. from the illustrious RPG Academy podcast, from some of his own work as well. I mean, you guys know him. You better know him. If you don't know him, you need to know him.
Yes, very true.
It's okay if you don't know me. I'm not that important, but I appreciate the kind words.
Caleb, introduce yourself a little bit, though, for those folks that may not actually know you, though we swear they need to.
Well, howdy out there to everybody in the internet world. I am at the Caleb G. That's how you find me. I used to be talking at you very regularly from the Kickstarter features and just general talk show advice content about how to get into RPGs, how to develop your skills, how to just figure out what to do. I also helped Michael over at the RPG Academy set up and launch the Acadecon gaming convention, which is regional here in Ohio. This year it is going to be virtual, but fingers crossed we will be back together as a big happy family next year. You may also know my voice from a couple other podcasts. I helped launch Whelmed, the Young Justice Files, where a whole bunch of super nerds dig into Young Justice, the awesome cartoon. And you may also know my voice from the Orpheus Protocol, a horror kind of podcast where there's a bunch of terrible people doing terrible things. So not that much different from reality, but they have magic powers. And there's monsters.
Okay. All right.
You know
they have
what?
magic powers.
If there were horrible people doing horrible things in real life, but they had magic powers, it would make it a little bit better than what's been going on for the last 8 months and 19 days.
Yeah.
Okay?
I mean-
Or sorry, 7 months and 19 days. Because you know what? Magic at least would have been entertaining.
You're right.
This is just awful.
I mean,
This is true.
Scooby-Doo taught us that the real monsters are people, and that's the world we live in.
It is.
You know, it's funny.
Yes.
We were talking about Scooby-Doo earlier today. Because we use a streaming service specifically to get Scooby-Doo. So what do you know? 6-year-olds, they love the Scooby-Doo. They love the mask reveal. That's how they do.
Yeah, my daughter likes Scooby-Doo, but then she gets too scared, so we have to turn it off.
That's understandable.
Yeah, she's 2. She hasn't figured it out yet. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So, talk about this. About, what was this, 2 months ago, a month ago, you approached me and asked if I would be willing to write a game, and we were going to donate some IDENTECO swag for this charity. So why don't you talk to people about what I committed us to, that I forgot what I committed myself to.
All right. So I am a part of a charity called Pelotonia. It is very similar to the brand of very expensive stationary bikes a lot of y'all have, but it's not the same. Pelotonia.org is a really awesome charity that started back in 2008, started here in Ohio, and has grown exponentially every year since. It is focused on raising money for cancer research. And funny, absolutely. Yeah, I've been back to back on streams tonight, folks, so my words are a little bit messy. But yeah, we raise a lot of money for cancer research. Everything is local here in Ohio. We have built amazing state of the art, best people in the world, best treatments and research in the world, facilities and hospitals and all that kind of good stuff. Normally, we celebrate every year with a bike ride through Columbus. Usually there's around 10,000 riders or so. Weaklings like me usually ride about 25 miles. The hardcore champs ride about 200 miles.
No.
Over a couple days.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I could do one, maybe. Maybe. It's only if my butt stops hurting from the seat, because the seat hurts a lot. I'm getting old.
I mean, I'd probably be good for like 2 or 3, and then, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
But anyway, keep going.
It's real tough, but it's a great charity. It's a great cause. It's really fun. It's all about community. It's all about banding together. Normally, it's like a couple days event in Columbus. We've got speakers and musicians, and we all get together and kind of celebrate surviving and supporting people who have survived and what we can do for them. This year, together, we've raised a little bit over $6.5 million. To date, since the charity has began, we've raised over $214 million, and a lot of corporate sponsors support the charity. They cover all the operating costs, so that all of that money we raise, all that 214, 100% goes to research and treatment, and it's really, really fantastic. I think all of us have seen the impacts of cancer in families and friends and loved ones. So I am really, really proud that the place where I work is as a big sponsor. They brought me in to this, drank the company Kool-Aid a little bit, but then realized how great an opportunity this was. I have been very lucky to be healthy, and doing something like this where I've seen cancer's impact on my family and family of friends is really, really important. So I'm really, really proud to have been part of this charity for the past 3 years. I was all set for a really big bike ride this year. I was training real hard, and then stuff happened. So I reached out to a whole bunch of awesome people I know in the gaming community. I have been lucky enough to know the guys here in the IDENTECO loft for a long time. We did a feature on them back in their first Kickstarter days, and over at the RPG Academy, and these are some stand-up gents. They have been very happy to support us over the years and partnered up, and I was kind of throwing out the bat signal saying, hey, anybody who can do me a solid and help me out. And Alex dove in kind of head first. He volunteered to run a game for the charity, so we did a raffle, and he's going to run a game. He also stepped up and threw a bunch of swag my way, so he's going to throw some PDFs. I think you said a couple books in the mail.
Yes.
So we drew the winners earlier on the RPG Academy Twitch show Detention, which is always a blast. It's just a whole bunch of guys.
They play this finger
goofy
game over there, like where they
Where
have
have
to
my
do
fingers
the fingers
been?
thing. I tuned in because I was doing prep for this show, and I tuned in right about the time that Michael was doing this thing, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I'm just staring like, huh?
Yeah. So myself and one of the old gents who used to game with us a lot, Matt Parody, we both are improv comics from back in the day. I did a bunch of improv comedy in college. He continues to be an improv comedian when the world allows him to perform on stage.
Yeah.
So when we pitched the Detention show as a live stream to just be goofy as hell, as opposed to chatting about serious things and giving good advice, I brought him on board so we could just, play off each other because we've known each other for so long. And he brought in all these super, super short form improv games. So things like, can you get to 10? Where have my fingers been? Stupid things like that, just to break the ice, get yourself into that good podcasting mood of playing off of each other. So I'm glad to see that even though I've been on sabbatical from the RPG Academy for a few years because of work and family, a couple traditions have remained.
Nice. If you get a chance, go check out our the IDENTECO streams that we did with the RPG Academy, because that was that was the birthplace. Have you ever heard us talk about the food truck
It was,
thing?
well, even before there was, I'm trying to remember because it was peanut butter,
Yeah.
Mhm.
vodka.
Yep.
Gosh, what was the other? Protein powder.
Yep. I made a deconstructed grilled cheese because there were American cheese slices in the fridge.
That's right.
With
Yes.
a peanut butter infused vodka rub or something. We were trying to rob this guy, and I said, "Screw it! I'm making a sandwich in his kitchen." Y'all let me get away with some shit.
We did,
That's
but I mean,
on you.
it made for great listening.
Look,
I have
there's two ways you can go, and that's super serious or fun, like really fun.
Yep. I have two things I try to do in any one shot. One of them is find a perfect sandwich.
Nice.
The second one is kill myself. We made
Did
a
not
good
succeed at
sandwich.
the second one.
No, but we made a damn good sandwich.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
So yeah, if you ever hear us talk about at conventions, the throwback to the food and cooking episode, which then gave birth, I think live on the podcast, to the idea of doing an IDENTECO food truck competition.
Which I think Caleb was working on for the last Acadecon.
Oh
that
yeah,
Yeah.
we sponsored and couldn't make it to.
yeah. I did run an IDENTECO food truck competition at last year's Acadecon. It was Mad Max Road Warrior meets like Mario Kart kind of thing. so
Gotta
so
throw
they
some
were-
Iron Chef in there.
Love it.
Yeah, because what would happen is they raced through the city where they would pick up drops of supplies. They would deal with gangs, obstacles, weapons, stuff like that. Then they would get to certain points in the city and have to set up and serve to crowds with the stuff they had gathered during the race, and then move on to the next and race again, deal with all of that. So it was ridiculous.
You say ridiculous. I think it's fantastic. So
That sounds like the best kind of ridiculous.
yeah.
It was a blast.
So I can't wait this year. We were talking with Michael and stuff like that about getting in on the virtual event for Acadecon, and
We'll be able to make that.
right, we won't have to go all the way from Seattle out to the Midwest this time. Usually back,
Seriously, we've sponsored the last 2 years, and something always happens, and we're like, fuck, we can't go. I still have some really like the lanyards that you guys had made last year, the IDENTECO lanyards. I've got a bunch of them. The spares that Michael sent me, and they look awesome. And I'm like, geez,
Yeah.
we can't. Cursed.
One of these years, this year being the year, we will be there because it's in a virtual event.
Somehow.
We'll be there somehow,
Yes.
some way. So
Yes.
oh
So
goodness.
speaking of IDENTECO,
Yep.
so Sean and I were talking about this beforehand, Caleb, and like we did our lore stream. What was that, like a week and a half ago,
about that.
Sean? And sometimes though, Sean and I know that we can't see the forest through the trees, and I know we had kind of been chatting on Twitter about this a little while ago. So I kind of want Caleb to take it away, and what is it that you've always been like? What is it about the lore or something in that world that we can finally explain for you?
Okay, all right. So I think the first thing we could get into would be what are some of, and this is a little bit off of exactly lore, but this might be a little bit more about some world building stuff. So I'll try to formulate my thoughts here as we're chatting. What are some of the things that really make the IDENTECO setting feel super futury and cyberpunky? Like, for example, I know we've got a lot of good technology. We've got the ROVs. You've painted a really good picture of some of the things that mechanically define the world, but what are some of the background things we don't see? Like what about food? Do we have food printers? Is food just grown in vats? What are some of the everyday things that NPCs take for granted, that it is just life, but can help us as players make the game world feel more real?
I mean, as the fat guy in the group, if you're asking about food, it's all mostly synthetic within the city.
Right.
And that's actually a story arc that we have gone through a little bit in convention games, and that will be even more prevalent coming up in a couple of missions that we've already sketched out. We just have to finish writing them. That we'll be releasing.
Like third is done.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting out in the waste. It's a little bit more like organic and a little bit more hippie out there. But most people in the city don't mind. Like, they know it's all like synthetic and stuff. But it's like in my day job, when we could all be in the office, the number of for lack of a better term, the number of tech bros that would run around with just those Soylent bottles in their hand all the time, and that's all they would drink for like, I don't know how long that day. And it's like, you realize that's completely like, there's nothing about that's like organic at all. Like, that is completely made in the lab, right? And they just wouldn't care. It's people. Well, yeah, I would always make that joke because big movie buff, but yeah, I mean, it's like there are definitely that kind of thing where people just will walk around.
So think of it this way. Imagine, I don't know if you've seen any of these like videos on like Facebook or on Instagram or anything like that, but in Asia they have these automated machines that do like really fancy ramen, right? You put your little thing in there, and it's not like our ramen that we get here in the States, but it is like real ramen. But I mean, it like injects your little egg thing here, and it does all this. Think about that, but on a much more massive scale. So it's, you walk by the vending machine every day, you punch in a code, it already knows you because of your chip. So it knows what your height, weight, BMI, it can tell because the chip is inside of your arm. It can tell if you've had any vitamins lately. It knows whether you're diabetic or not because that's contained in your medical records. All of that information is in there. So you can scan your chip over the vending machine, and it's going to build you a burrito that is perfectly designed for whatever you need that day.
Because burrito.
Or maybe it's a stew or a smoothie.
No,
but
it's burritos.
You would basically have like a screen. Think of a touch screen, right? It's like, okay, what are you in the mood for today? Well, it's hot, so I want a smoothie. Boop. Okay, scan your chip. Boop. Okay. I see that you're a little light on vitamin C today. You need a little bit of protein because you just left the gym and this, that, and the other. And in 30 seconds, it spits out the tailor-made thing for you.
Complete with the tastes that you do and don't like. That's the other thing. That's how they get you. It doesn't taste like kale, but it's got all the shit from kale.
What I would say is, anytime you're thinking about IDENTECO's translated is identity in Esperanto. And so the idea is this: they have captured your identity. Everybody knows the meme or the joke about, I was talking to my friend about this thing, and then I flipped open Facebook and I saw an ad for it, right? Was my cell phone listening to me? This is actually what's happening. And the thing that like inspires a lot of this is, when you're walking around your city one day, just look and see where all of the cameras are. Right? Every ATM, every bodega, every car wash, every gas station, everything. Now imagine that times 500 and linked to something that you carry around with you all the time in the chip. And that's why all of this just kind of feeds into itself.
It's funny too that you mentioned bodega, because like out on the fringes, they don't quite have the same synthesizers like that. They kind of just deal with what rations and food that they can get. So you got a lot more chance of like running up on a ramen shop, perhaps, or like a mobile ramen cart or something like that. I really want ramen tonight, apparently.
I'm gonna do my favorite reference. I'm gonna do my favorite reference. Did you ever see the movie, Caleb, Demolition Man, with Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes?
Absolutely. I love that
Okay.
movie.
My man.
Okay.
Terrible.
Do you remember? It's so great. Do you remember the underground part of the world where Dennis Leary was in charge?
Yes. And
That
and it
is
was
the
the
fringes.
best rat he's ever eaten.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
And so anytime you're like, what do the fringes look like in Identico? Go to YouTube, find that clip. Okay. That is a perfect little amalgamation. And actually, for those that want some good cyberpunk viewing, Demolition Man is one of the most cyberpunk films made in probably the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's very subversive in its messaging, right? Taco Bell is the only company that survives the franchise wars, right? You got the 3 seashells. It's that the thing where he's swearing and the thing's listening to him and finding him. Like, watch that film with fresh eyes, and you will see, like, you're like, Blade Runner cyberpunk. No, Demolition Man is really cyberpunk.
Yeah,
I've done
absolutely. So I know I brought up. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. That's you.
So I brought up food because, well, I'm hungry, and whenever I'm talking about a genre of any kind of game to try to understand its lore, understand what makes it real, I try to find very common touch points with reality.
Sure.
Like I use this example a lot in different examples, but way back when I played a game of Legend of the Five Rings, and I
That's a
had
good game.
no idea about the lore, and I felt so unable to just perform as a gamer, let alone a podcaster or an entertainer, because I felt so disconnected from what I was supposed to do. So when I'm digging into something like cyberpunk, it feels really easy because it's so close to reality.
Sadly.
I mean, we're living in a cyberpunk dystopia. It's just not cool.
Right. We need more neon. Besides my Twitch overlay over here.
Yeah. So, what I find kind of challenging is we understand the concept of cyberpunk. It's not that far off from reality. So you have to kind of reverse the paradigm and look for the really small but important differences to make the game feel real. So that's why I ask about food and common, average, everyday technology, because those are the little things as a game master that you can just say, yeah, you've got a friggin' computer in your pocket that can do everything, but here's why it's different in the future.
Yep. Well, because now you don't have to pull it out of your pocket. That's one thing, too. So
here's another question. Along those same lines, in other cyberpunk games and in a lot of movies and visual media, we have that concept of like the AR desktop.
Sure.
How prevalent is that kind of technology and visual use of tech and computer access in the Identico world?
Exceedingly common. And if it doesn't exist as holographic on your thing, it's in your glasses, it's in your eye, yay cybernetics, it's everywhere. And again, because it's all linked, the linchpin being that all of you are interlinked now, almost like a hive mind, you can't escape it anymore. And so it's like breathing to most people.
yeah, I mean, we go back to the food example, right? Like your food menu board can almost be like that pop-up kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay. So it would be totally common to watch someone walking down the street with that like visual display in front of their face, or maybe coming off wherever their chip is.
It would more be like watching someone walk down the street with a blank expression on their face because they're watching something that's not in front of them.
Right. I gotcha.
Yeah, we
So
created.
you may
we
not be
created
able to
it.
see it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I was going to say, we created what's called the 1,000-yard stare.
Yep.
And that's the base program that a lot of these things are needed to start with as a hacker. Mainly because we felt like that's what a bunch of... we have some of the imagery in the book kind of almost feels like cybernetic zombies in a way. And it's definitely... I mean, you see it now with all the, with this, walking down the street with the phone and right, like they're not looking where they're going or anything like that, and imagine if you just don't have to like look down at your phone, you're just keeping going. Like, you can not get hit by a car, but you're definitely not paying attention to what's going on around you,
Right. You're watching TikTok in your left glasses lens and letting your right eye kind of like watch you, and you're scrolling by just kind of flicking your eye up like, no, next video.
If TikTok still exists in the future, I'm out.
Well, not TikTok, but I mean, there's probably something similar to it.
Unless TikTok wants to sponsor IDENTECO, in which case,
well, of course it exists.
They can't soon, I think. Twitch and live streaming to make money still a thing in 2099. Wink, Twitch,
All right, so
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm gonna cheat here because I'm gonna ask you a question I asked the other day that you didn't actually answer. What about religion?
Okay, I thought I did answer that.
He posed it to me in our personal chat in Discord, and I was like, hold it for the stream.
Oh no, that was on the chat thing they asked about religion.
Yep.
I mean, the short answer is not super common in the metros, and is almost like writing poetry, right? Should be done in private for most people. Don't share that with the public.
Yep.
Good for your own soul, but maybe not for sharing. Out in the Wastes, it's much more common, and in fact, if you take a look at some of the other supplemental stuff we've written, there are religious extremist groups and kind of religious Luddite groups and all of those types of things. So it's still there, but it's kind of like now, if you look at it statistically, religion in basically anything in the global north or first world developed nations has been decreasing for about the last 25 years. And I don't see anything to change that trend.
Chat would like us to be reminded that we have Texas in the game. So there you go.
Oh, except for Texas. Sorry. They're 2 steps short of a full-blown theocracy.
Yep.
You did mention that in the last stream, I think you did.
Well, I would actually go so far, too, is it's a little bit like, and I'm going to make another Final Fantasy VII reference just because I love that game. But you know how when Cloud fell through the broken cathedral in the lower plate? It's a little bit like that. Like in the slums and in the fringes, they practice it. It's quiet, kind of like what Alex is saying. But in a lot of ways, too, there's also like cyber cults. There are, in Detroit, we have a thing that runs the city called Our Lady of Sorrows. And nobody really knows a whole lot about this entity. They think it's a her. It presents as a her, but it's never seen a face kind of thing, right? And so there's different types of religion that would come out of something like this, where you are worshiping almost like living beings as prophets in a lot of ways too. And so there's some definite kind of pulls with that. And then, when you get with like a cyber cult or something like that, of course they want to make their body as cybernetic as possible. They want to be as chromed out, as shiny as they can be. Dare we say the T word? I don't know, but going almost transhumanist in a lot of ways, right? Like there's some ways that that they try to kind of buy into a lot of those sort of things. And so, while it's not the religions that we would necessarily think of, at least in America, we start talking worldview, that's a completely different kind of thing. But in America, it's a little different. We've got these different players in play, essentially.
So there's a bunch of this stuff that we're finally now that we kind of got our feet under us and the book is here, that we're going to be or are in the process of exploring as far as what is human, what is more than human, where does that begin and end?
What is more human than human? The best album from Rob Zombie.
This is a good album.
It is a good album. Actually, I kind of would love to know. So, if you're watching this in chat in real time, or if you're watching this on YouTube later, leave us a comment. We have all these tidbits of things, but we know that they're going to help the world and things like that. What's the best way that you would like us to put that content out there?
Release that.
Yeah. We have ideas, but I'd rather hear from the people who are actually playing the game regularly
And
to
buying
find
it.
out like how
Yeah.
they want to do it. Yeah. Because we have a game that we play that facts the facts the facts of facts and errata's the facts. And so we don't want to do that. We would like to do it once and not make everybody run all over the internet to find content.
Yeah.
I think you had another question, Caleb, that you sent me in Discord the other day, and you were talking about swear words.
I did send you that question,
Yeah.
but I had another question that just popped
Ooh.
into my mind, so I'm
Okay.
going to ask that question
All
first.
right, lay it on me.
Okay.
So what types of myths and stories still exist? And here's what I mean by that. We know how society is evolving. We know we talked a little bit just about the evolution of religion and what exists and what doesn't, how that's changing. But as people, we're always telling stories to each other, whether they're fairy tales or a reference back to old religion, old mythology, making it new. Because the way humans have evolved, we make connections and we understand through storytelling. So
Yes.
if we go into this crazy future, which isn't that crazy and not that far future, what myths still exist? What stories still exist? Do people look at like old school fairy tales like we look at old Disney movies now? Has there been a new evolution? Just so same story, different coat. Is there anything else that's just popped up over the years?
So, you mind if I jump on this one, Mallo?
No, go for it, man. I'm
Okay.
answering chat in real time.
So two things that I would say to that. One, a lot of the basic stories of myths, obviously those still exist, right? When you
But
go to
that doesn't
elementary school, you
change.
learn about Zeus, and then you read Sleeping Beauty and things like that. And of course, those stories are periodically recycled over and over and over and over again. Now, as far as folk heroes go, it becomes more difficult for us to fictionalize folk heroes, right? Because in 2099, so if you take the same amount of time back from where we are now to then, right? Or like when we were kids, like John Henry, Johnny Appleseed, all the, those kind of folklore kind of heroes that were in Americana, it's more difficult to folklorize them because there is video, because all this stuff comes forward. So what's almost replaced that is conspiracy theories, right? So there's your almost your folklore, right? So the example that I use, I'm pretty sure it's in the book. I don't think we cut it. Anyway, the example that I use is the IOG. So the IOG exists. It's a thing. Everybody knows it's a thing, right? But the theories and the conspiracy theories about what they're capable of and how they do it are everywhere, right? Some people believe they have psychics. Some people think they found aliens. Some people think, So pick your cultural touchstone and apply it to the world around them, right? Whatever makes sense for that culture, they're going to apply that reasoning to things that they still don't understand. As technology gets deeper, as technology gets more like magic, right? People are going to start, assuming that X and Y and Z are, myths or conspiracies or folklore. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's always interesting to see how stories evolve. we know now that, like you said, all stories are recycled. It's just a retelling of something else. And a lot of the things that were key components of those old stories, like magic and supernatural powers, don't count anymore because we can do more than that. So where do we turn to? And it's kind of like, and maybe I'm just interpreting what you're saying a little bit, but it's kind of like the more advanced the society is, the more we what's the word I'm trying to think of? The more we go backwards, retrograde almost with the stories we're telling. We're not going to tell a story about a wizard who can do magic because I can do magic with my chip.
Right.
But I might tell a story about some weird psychic lurking in the sewers who's implanting thoughts in my brain.
Yeah. And the other way to kind of look at this is, here's a good modern day example would be, have you seen all the conspiracy theories about 5G?
It's exhausting.
Yes. But take that concept where people are like, well, 5G, it's doing this and the wavelengths are blah. And as technology continues to advance, the number of people who truly understand how that technology works at its core goes down. Now, the majority of people are just going to accept the technology for what it is. They're going to pick up their smartphone and they're going to go, it works. I like it. It does the thing that I want. Okay. Yay. But there's always going to be that percentage of society that is looking to ascribe meaning, that is looking to assign something deeper to something that may or may not even be there. And so that's what kind of takes that place. And actually, where Sean was going with the cyber cults, that's where a lot of those can come from.
Interesting. So
these cybernetics are magic.
So it's like we always have this drive to find meaning and find connections.
Yes.
Humans understand through pattern recognition. And whether that pattern is a story or a set of instructions, that's how we comprehend the world around us. So when the world is so structured and laid out with tech and corporations, we try to find a pattern, we try to make a pattern behind the scenes. And I mean, that's all religion is, for the most part. It's just a weird pattern, a weird sense of understanding. So, okay.
Well,
it's
it's interesting you talk about patterns too. It's like food is a pattern. Because I study food, I used to be a chef, right? And so everywhere in the world has a pancake. Everywhere in the world before they could travel to see each other has a pancake of some site. Like everybody's got a tortilla or a pita, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's always interesting how human beings, right? Like you're getting to that base programming in a way. Like everybody makes a flat piece of bread. It's going to be made out of like wheat, or it's going to be made out of corn. And we've got a tortilla, we got a pita, we got all these kind of things, right? And it's interesting.
So, now I'm more embarrassed that I was spitballing my stupid peanut butter.
Don't be embarrassed.
No, be fine.
But two, that's a good reference to Snow Crash, because Snow Crash is looking at like the base thoughts of how just your brain functions, that we all come from a shared evolution of language, and you can use that language to program your brain. We have shared food, we have shared myths. Most myths have some form of a world destruction myth, like the flood in typical Western religion. A ton of different stuff has that savior figure, a death and resurrection figure, the concepts of heaven and hell. We all made those up separately, but there's so many similarities.
Yep.
Cool. So now let's pivot to the question I threw the other day. What kind of bad words and slang do you have in the future?
It's all you, Sean.
No, it's all me. Oh, okay. Give it to the sailor's son.
Exactly.
Yeah. I always instead of the F word, I like using frack. And chat's gonna roast me for about 5 minutes because that was in Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
But I love it because of that. Like, it works well. It works because the thing. All right, there was a comedian, and I think Alex, you might know this one too. But there was a comedian out there that like did the breakdown of all the uses of the word "fuck." But
Carlin.
Was it Carlin? I thought it was there somebody else that
Carlin.
did it too. Yeah. Okay, so Carlin did that
It was
one.
Carlin. Yep.
It was
If
Carlin.
it wasn't, it should have been.
Well, it should have been. No,
It
I know he
definitely was
did. I know he
Carlin.
did a lot on the dirty words you can't say. But one of the comedians, it
words.
might have been Carlin, but it's basically like it's so good because it's like a whip crack. It's like like that.
Yep.
And frack is kind of the same way, but without potty mouth,
Right.
kind of thing. So that's one of the ones that I always like to use for that. I know that other ones like to use frag and stuff like that, but I think I come from the Twitch-ish world, and so frag means something completely different when you're playing online multiplayer games. So I like frack. I think and then this is going to come very Anglio from me, but I like shite, even though that's really just shit in proper English, as they would say. But I like shite. What else do we need to come up with? I'm gonna write this down for the podcast so we can actually have a list of
When you
approved
do.
world. Yeah.
So I don't have the book in front of me, but there is, and again, a lot of these will vary from region to region. One of the common ones is, those people who live near the metros who are like, oh shucks, I don't know about this technology, right? Like that is heavily looked down upon.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's there are some very bad pejorative words for people that want to like play pseudo Luddite who live in the cities.
Like what?
I feel like you might have used the term grounders at one point.
So we do, and that's actually one of the background lines, one of the background types in the game. And grounders can be used as a pejorative for anybody that doesn't live in the metros, right? And that's like calling them savages, basically. And so, but much like you do with a lot of pejorative terms, grounders out in the West call themselves grounders as a point of pride. Like, we don't do what drones in the city do, right? We live our own lives. You guys do as you're told, So again, it's a complicated term in that, again, it's used as a pejorative to anybody from out there, but those people have reclaimed it as their own and saying, you know what? No. Sorry, we like this word. We're going to use it.
Yep. I wrote down a long time ago, sock puppet.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's more like a hacker that's working for the corpse, or a hacker that's kind of working for IOG. So that would be something that you would call a hacker that you're going against, essentially. You call him a sock puppet.
All right.
Fire the cities. I'm trying to think of other ones. I had a list going, and I continue to kind of build on that because again, as you were saying earlier, it's the little things in the lore that really make it kind of stand out. We used to say that Grounder was one of the class that we eventually called the Outrider, and then we just made it a whole background because exactly as Alex was saying, like it was a point of pride to them. So it's like, okay, now what else would they be? If they're already grounders, like what else would they want to be if they're in that kind of like Mad Maxy kind of rural sort of area? So,
is there anything off the top of your head that, not necessarily an explicative, but something that is unique to a very common everyday phrase that might be a little bit different or evolved? The weird thing about language is it's just so natural for us to use it. It's hard to kind of analyze, okay, well, here's a certain phrase I use every day.
Yeah.
That's definitely a colloquialism or a commonplace, but it's not actually part of language. It's just something we made up. I mean, all language is made up, but
well, and one of the things we didn't want to do, we've read a ton of cyberpunk books, especially other RPGs, and they go too heavy into the slang in a lot of ways. Because it's like Thieves' Cant almost, like if you're playing like 5e or like Pathfinder or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You've got Thieves' Cant. They never make you actually talk in Thieves' Cant. That's one thing that Cyberpunk does that like most of the time you never do in like a fantasy setting. And it's one of those things where like we want to be understanding it in the moment, and as we do this live stream and podcast, we're probably going to come up with a few of those as we go through. Because let's be honest, one of the guys on this stream is named Bunny Boy, for crying out loud. So, and it's spelled B-O-I. His dress of choice right now is the Kanye West like winter theme, is what he said. You'll hear it coming up in the Meet Bunny Boy episode.
It's exciting. Very exciting.
Slang and language. So there's a lot of things, and if you dig into it, it was one of those things where we didn't want to beat people over the head with it, right? A lot of the terms and a lot of the names of corporations and things like that, I encourage people to go look up an Esperanto to English dictionary, or vice versa through Google Translate.
Yeah, translate.google.com is your friend.
Yep. We use a lot of Esperanto because of the origins of what Esperanto was supposed to be as a language, right? How it was supposed to become a universal language, and what the aspirations for that concept were, which is why we kind of settled on it for one of the themes that we use to name stuff. The difficulty is that with language is that it's hard to strike that balance when you're writing between beating somebody over the head with it, right?
Yeah.
Like another pseudo-ish cyberpunk game out there, like they throw their common phrase for friend or pal in every 3 sentences, and it kind of drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I think I know what book you're talking about.
Yes. And so I'm like, we get the point, right? And so it's difficult to not beat people over the head of it. There's also a huge issue with becoming very problematic very quickly. It's easy to wander into some dangerous stereotypes with language. And so we try to be super cognizant of that and think about the way that we write that way. And so, yeah, that's why it's...
Yeah, I mean,
we can be a little Beely about it.
Well, and the thing is, we deal with serious topics, but we don't do it at the expense of the players and the player base, right? Like, we understand that bad things happen in the world, and hell, we wrote a lot of bad things into the how we got here kind of section and the world backstory and stuff like that. But we don't necessarily make it like where you can just throw pejoratives around all day long, and just kind of go for it from there. So, yeah. So if anything, we've probably been a little lax on that particular part of it because we've been very cautious about how we wanted to approach it.
And I also think you don't want to hand people the culture of the world.
Yeah.
You want them to find it and create it while they are playing.
Yes. Yeah, we've heard different things from different player groups along, because when we go to shops, when we go to conventions, we have people try to tell us the stories of what they're doing with their characters and things like that, and we love to hear that because it's one of those things where they're so excited to hear it, and we're so excited that somebody is excited to be in the world and doing, anything that we kind of wrote. But it starts to kind of jog your brain after a little bit. You're like, oh, yeah, but okay, we could do it like this, or I never actually kind of thought about that kind of like way of looking at it and stuff too. And so, in a way, our language is kind of evolving, as it kind of naturally should do in any sort of like living game, because while we put this in 2099, while we were under the development of this game, many things that have happened in the book have already happened. So we're kind of continuing to push out the crazy a little bit as we go. So we kind of feel like it's a bit of a living game in a lot of ways too.
And there was something that popped into my head as well. The other thing that's difficult is that and we fell into it a little bit just because of kind of how this works, but one of the things that tends to happen in these games is we get this very Western American English-speaking centralization of the game. And the thing that we've tried to do, and we do it a lot with con games. So when we've written con games, in fact, one of the next ones we're releasing is Adventures that we should be releasing is in Rome. The one after that, there's going to be one in Dubai, South Africa, Singapore, all over the world. The thing that you need that I would say is, and this again makes the language thing much more difficult, is don't center English-speaking Western nations into this game. We've written adventures that take place all over the world. The world is getting smaller. Travel is easier. So for your player characters to get from Angel City to, Da Nang is not a challenge. It's just there. The world is your oyster, and there are a lot of very cool settings you can use that will change how you approach the world. Again, language kind of fits into that, is that those are all very regional, right?
Yeah.
I spent a bunch of time in the Middle East, and even when you're talking about just Arabic and how many regional dialects there are of that, and little changes to how they talk based on what country they're from, where in the region they're from, all of those things can affect that. So with language, again, what may be common slang in Angel City may not be in Tokyo or Hong Kong.
Although, let's be honest, the words Tokyo Drift are a universal language. Very much so. We have actually never talked about this. So we might be developing like in real time in front of live cameras, but like universal translators, right? Like those are a thing that's on the on the Enterprise and Doctor Who. I mean, we're kind of starting to build it in like Google Glass and those like the, what do they call them, the frames, the ones from Amazon, the Echo frame ones that they can hear stuff and all like that, like, and your phone and earbuds can all do it and stuff like that. Like how prevalent is that, do we think, in 2099? It starts to close the language gap a little bit, but I still like to kind of think that it really fucks up the language a little bit, which can create some hilarious moments.
I'm looking because I thought we wrote that into the cybernetics section, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I feel like you had a mention where you can use your glow, basically like a Google Translate.
Yeah.
Speech to text, text to speech.
It never goes far for us.
That.
I think you can, but again, it's still like how, like,
we've all used Google Translate. It ain't perfect.
Yeah. So I think it's still kind of to that point, right, with the regional dialects and things that Alex is talking about. Like you still kind of feel like a tourist in a lot of ways. It's like I left my pants in the library when you're trying to like translate.
And this is the hard part with any. So, fantastical sci-fi is almost easier because you're inventing a new vocabulary and you can hand wave a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. The difficulty that I have is they're like, okay, we created a cryptocurrency. Well, for our piece of it, how's it backed up? Okay, well, they actually have minerals, not like the gold standard, but it's rare earth stuff that they get from the asteroid belt. That's what stabilizes their currency and makes it less speculative than Bitcoin. But I've got to be careful about how we write that, because I'm not trying to write monetary policy the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could write you fiscal and monetary policy of the game, and I could explain to you the fiscal and monetary policy of IDENTECO because it's sitting in the back of my brain because I'm a nerd. But I don't, it's like, how much of that do you put into the book?
Yeah. Yeah, we try to purposely be less on the crunchy side when it comes to a lot of things. Like we want people to enjoy playing the game and not doing math the game. We do math the game for fun on the side with very expensive pieces of plastic. So,
and this game used to be way more crunchy than it is.
You did mention that on the last show you did. Some of the different mechanical stuff that you may have simplified and cut down on.
Yep. We're just in a non-crunch place right now as an industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is interesting to see how how games have evolved just over the last 10 years, 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah, goodness, it's been, how long has 5e been out? 5 years now? 6 years now?
About 5. I think D&D Next came out just before we started working on IDENTECO, so that was the tail end of 4E.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I
So,
was,
yeah,
I had
about
played
5 years, 6
4E a little bit in South Carolina before I moved out here. Chat's saying 2014.
Sure.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Well, I have the AC Inc. panel saved that we were at the day that we started writing this in the comp book, like in the composition notebook on the sidewalk, waiting in line. Somewhere around here, we might still have that composition notebook, but yeah, we started that whole thing just waiting in line.
I think it's on one of my shelves here.
Okay,
Truthfully.
all right.
I know I've still got crap tons of notes, like
Yeah,
handwritten
same.
notes from when we were doing
Same.
this. So, all right, let's do 8:15 here. Let's do 2 more. Caleb, you got time for 2 more questions?
I think I can.
And then we need to let you go get some food, 'cause that's important.
Yes, and sleep.
And sleep.
You're in a different time zone than us. We're still early here.
Yeah, I'm East Coast. It's 11:15 my time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's do a couple more. And
You
we'll,
know,
I think we'll call it a day.
we need to do a poll to abolish the time zones in IDENTECO and see if people actually care about that.
That would be interesting.
Because daylight
Maybe.
savings time is weird.
Oh no, daylight savings time is gone.
Oh, we're just gonna call it? Okay.
We're just gonna call
An
it
exclusive for you all here. Daylight savings time is gone.
Screw you,
Fuck
Ben
that
Franklin.
And here's the thing: we out here in Seattle, we benefit greatly from daylight savings time.
It's
Like,
true.
I don't think people realize how light it stays out in the middle of the summer here. Like, it's 10 o'clock at night and it's still bright. You know, like right now it's 8:15 and it's like twilight.
Yeah, it makes doing
know.
runs really hard
We're
if you're
pretty
trying to
far
do it
north.
under the cover of night. Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry.
let's kick
All
it
right.
back to Caleb. What
All
do we
right.
got?
All right. So I think when we picture cyberpunk in our head, we all have a different picture of what it visually looks like, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of core foundational tenets that are kind of all the same. Like, we picture the big cities, the massive skyscrapers, the neon, the different levels of society kind of stacked on itself. And you kind of place that version of a city almost anywhere you go. Cyberpunk is super world hoppy, like you said a few minutes ago. You can just bounce
Sure.
from different parts of the world all over the place. It's not uncommon, it's normal. So what are some parts of not only this specific world, but is there anything unique in IDENTECO that might be a little bit different than the cliche?
Ooh.
I mean, I'll go ahead and say that Rome is not what you described.
Okay.
Especially around, I mean, for those of us that played with us in convention games, you guys know, but and we put it in the first book a little bit, but like you go and you're in Rome and you're around the Vatican in the next adventure that we're going to release. That is a much different type of place that you would ever think for a cyberpunk setting, right? There's no cyberpope, so to speak. Like, here we go back to religion, right? Like, they still have
No,
like,
it's just the Pope.
yeah, it's just a Pope. Yeah, and it's just, you know, their security is a lot better, but then again, the security around the Vatican has always been really good. And so, you know, the weapons have been upgraded and things like that, but like, it's still Rome. It's still old world Rome. And it, you know, that gives it a little bit different flavor when you're trying to run the streets. You can't be dressed as like full on, you know, cyberpunk person, because it's, you know, it's still a touristy kind of place, right? Like, now there's different dress for the time, obviously, and trends have changed and fashions changed and things like that. But it's still very much an old world kind of feel to it. And that's why we want to jump around. because you go to a place like a Singapore or a Dubai where it's already very futuristic, and you get, Dubai is very clean. There is no second layer of that city for the most part. Like, they actively try to get rid of it. And Singapore is a little bit more like your traditional Hong Kong or any other cyberpunk place, right? And so now you've got 3 different flavors of location, because we want all those flavors to feel differently. London is going to feel differently when we take you there. Vancouver already is... It is that weird Pacific Northwest mix of like Vancouver and a cyberpunk kind of feel.
Yeah.
Somebody in chat is going, the IRA still exists.
Right. That was just literally the one I was about to jump in there. Like,
Go for it.
Northern Ireland is still very like green and hilly and things like that. Now they're back into a state of conflict because of the political situation in Britain, but Ireland hasn't changed that much. That's a part of the world that just is like, no, we're good. We got our hills and our fishing villages, and we're fine.
I mean, imagine if you will, a dark pub. No, but like, if you're in a pub in Ireland, a traditional pub in Ireland, which I miss right about now, especially, but like, the person that's serving you might have a cybernetic leg because they lost one or whatever like that, but they're still kind of a big, gruff kind of looking person that's pouring you a pint, right? Like, it's not, especially in Ireland, when it kind of comes to that, where they take pride in making beer. They still grow hops. They don't do it synthetically. You can get synthetic beer, but fuck if an Irish person's ever going to drink it.
You're not gonna find hydro farms with potatoes in Ireland.
No. Now you will in Dubai and other places like that, but you won't in Ireland, right? And so whole countries kind of fall into some of the flavors that we even bring just in America. So those are kind of the things that we do. And so then you've got to start to kind of go, Dorothy, we're not in Kansas anymore, right? Yeah. Like, now I've got to change the way I dress. I got to change the way I think. I've got to change the way I act, because I'm going to look like a fish out of water immediately if I start to kind of just play my normal game here. And that always kind of gets to the little bit of the secret agency and, heisty kind of feel that a lot of folks really enjoy about the game.
So somebody in chat just asked if sake was the same. And I'm going to say this. So the two things is there's a lot of synthetic sake out there, but high-end stuff. And that's actually, again, one of those things that's, think about like cars. Cars have once again become a status symbol in the metros. Why? Because most people, A, don't need them. B, the traffic's so bad they can't afford them and things like that. So having, and I think we mentioned this in the book somewhere, like 99%, having a car and a valet is a huge status symbol in the metros. Real things like real sake, real scotch, non-synthetic stuff are status symbols now.
Yeah.
Right?
If you go meet one of the high-end faces in Japan, you'll get
He's going to have real sake.
He's going to have the real sake, and you're going to know it's the real sake. You're going to be in that kind of conversation to like drop a contract, right? You're not going to be drinking the synthetic stuff there.
Right.
What about the concept of I'm trying to describe this without using the word that other people do. The massive, all-encompassing building where you live, work, develop food, the one-shot kind of place. Is that a thing?
So you're talking about like an arcology.
I was trying to be creative, but
I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I get where you're going.
I got the point across.
Absolutely.
No. So as of now, the closest you would actually come to that would actually be a space station.
Yes.
Because they
Danaska.
need to be more efficient, and
Danaska.
Those are probably the only two, but it's not going to be like you see in some other games where they're like, the arcologies are really big and they're everywhere. It's just to tear down the infrastructure necessary to build an arcology big enough to make it worthwhile is just not a practical idea.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I kind of think, and this is just me kind of brainstorming and spitballing a little bit, but if reputation and identity is so important, that's kind of one of the major currencies that exists here. Instead of an arcology where it's all in one place, it's the sphere of influence of the corp.
Yep.
And where you're allowed to be within the corp. And so the corp building is here, and there's the sprawl all around it. But my level of influence in the corp lets me get up to this floor and out to this radius.
Yeah.
And after that, that's where things get a little funky.
So I have to say that right there is the thing that I love when that happens, because it's the thing that we try and express without, like you said, like being more creative about it without being like beat you over the head with it. But that is it right there in the nutshell, right? Is how much influence do you have? How much social capital and political capital and all this capital do you have in the world? And that is the perfect way of describing that.
Yeah.
So, extrapolating from that, then, we look out to the fringe. We look out to where we don't have that corporate big brother watching us as intensely. How does life change out there in light of that social currency? Is that more of a social contract where we just kind of all agree to follow some of these more universal practices, or does the practice evolve into its own currency exchange?
I would say both.
Fair answer.
No, and I mean that because each of them do it differently. Whereas in some places, even as we have joked about making our own sort of co-op and compound among several of the players, we keep joking about there's a
missile silo.
There's a missile silo, for lack of a it's a missile complex in Eastern
near
Washington, near us. It's on sale. You can go buy it. And we were like, that'd be a great place to just make like, several family, very Fallout style, but make several families and go down there and each family have their job and that's what they do. And, so you've got very small settlements like that are easily defensible, because try getting into a nuclear or missile silo. Good luck with that. And then you've got places like Danaska that are entire free trade units, and they have a government, and they have, a council, and people have jobs and employers and free trade, and, and all of these kind of things that go on there. And so it kind of ranges from there, but it is all very much on the social contract, which is kind of how we run America now. It's one giant social contract. And they just tend to, for lack of a better term, believe in it more than most of the folks in the city do. And the fringers would probably agree that the social contract is broken, I'd probably say. Meanwhile, the corp's like, this is great.
So, and the other thing to keep in mind is everything we're talking about is nothing but social constructs, right? The thing that I was talking to someone a little while ago is money doesn't exist, right? In real life, money's not a thing. Doesn't exist. We made it up. It means nothing. It has nothing, And so all of these things, the social contract, all of these, the way that the corps are structured, everything else, it's all that interrelational thing that we just agree that this is how things go.
Yeah. It's very much in that way.
It's one giant construct.
Yeah.
We just say, okay, sure.
And we wrote it down in a book. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Before we jump off, Caleb, do we want to tease the IDENTECO project that you are working on, or do you still want to keep that under wraps? Or have I teased it enough for everybody out there?
Oh, man. I don't know what I'm at liberty to discuss.
Do I know about this, or am I just forgetting something?
I think you're forgetting
little column
something.
A, little column B.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Possible I could have just forgot.
So I'll say this. in a lot of cyberpunk stories, we look at the big damn heroes.
Yep.
The guys making all the noise,
Making the moves.
making the moves, the ones putting on a show. Look, I'm using your catchphrase. Look how great I am.
Always be branding.
Always be branding. I should have put my hoodie on. It's too hot.
Yes.
Oh,
So you're always seeing that, and a lot of times those big characters do interact with the folks that are just working for the corpse. Maybe they shove over a couple security workers. Maybe they kill them. Maybe they don't. Maybe they shake down an executive. Maybe they raid their house for some intel. Maybe they make a peanut butter sandwich while they're there. I don't know. I wasn't there. But end of the day, the stories that most people tell, movies, media, whatever, it's the guys making the waves.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Who's telling the story of the average Joe, the schmuck working for the corp? I don't know the answer to that question. But someone should tell that story.
You know what?
I'm gonna point at that guy right there. That guy might be telling that story.
Okay, which way am I pointing?
Yeah, I know.
Right
You're. I'm mirrored
Nope.
from where I'm at. There we go.
That way.
That way. That way. That guy.
That way.
I'm shrugging. I'm stretching.
That guy.
It's late on the East Coast. I don't know what's going on. I've been up since 5.
Here's the thing. I love those stories. I like reading them.
I can't wait.
Stories.
That's the only thing is that I can't wait. Caleb and I have talked some details on the side, and it's gonna be amazing. That's all I can say. So.
There's also a bunch of stuff I haven't talked to you about.
Oh well, we'll discuss
Okay.
that. You know what? We'll discuss that offline, and then maybe we'll just do another stream like this, and we'll talk about that the whole time.
Yeah,
I'm okay with this. So
I like them.
cool.
There you go. There you go.
There we go. I put him on the spot, y'all. Just for you. Just for you.
This-
We got a bunch of people
this
that
whole-
went tease in the chat.
Oh yeah,
so.
you actually got the chat like really kind of moving about that.
This whole thing was on the spot, y'all. I was very much appreciative for the invite here, and I
Thank
knew
you.
we'd talk about some lore stuff. And then you're like, "Hey, ask a whole bunch of questions," and I'm like, "Oh damn, I've got to think of questions."
Well, you did
Yes,
amazing.
but you're very good at it. You did very good at it. Again, we appreciate it. It's hard for us to see the forest of the trees. There's times where we're like, and it was great when we were in the editing process because like our editor would be like, "Do you need to explain this thing right here?" And I'd be like, "Oh, see, it makes sense in my head because I know the background and all the other stuff, but you don't."
Yep.
And so I need to write that down some more. So
Yep.
So I just wanted to double check, because we talked about this a little bit before. Can folks still donate to your charity ride?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm
So
going to post that in the chat.
how do they do that?
So the raffle itself is over, but if you swing over to my Twitter page at @TheCalebG, because I decided that's who I am, I have a link that goes right to my account. It goes directly to Pelotonia. It doesn't go through me in any way. It's mypelotonia.org/profile/something CG0186.
Yep, CG0186. It's in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the notes for the episode as well.
They used to let me make a vanity profile, pelotonia.org/TheCalebG, but this year changed a lot. A bunch of
Yes.
shit happened. So,
Sorry,
yeah,
Did something
fundraising.
happen this year?
I mean, here little things here and there. Nothing
Oh, fine
major.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. It's fine. So fundraising is going on. We're cutting it off sometime in October this year. So if you do have any inkling to support the work, I appreciate it. Everything goes 100% to them. I do still have a couple miles left on my bike rides to do for this year. I set my own personal goal of just hitting some miles. I've been super, super lazy because work has been crazy and it's been hot as blazes. And I do not want to ride 50 miles in burning sun. So hopefully, if we do get a little bit cooler end of this month going into September, maybe I'll hit the road for a pretty big bike ride one of these days. So,
well, and for those just joining us, mypelotonia.org, all the money goes directly for cancer research. There is no overhead fees. There is no administrative fees or anything like that. So 100% of the money that you donate goes to the cancer research foundations that they support. Corp backings and things like that on the side. Hey, corps aren't always bad. Yay. But corp backing on the side kind of make it where they don't have to take any money off the top to make sure that people help out.
Caleb, Sean and I both work for giant mega corporations.
Yeah. I work for a slightly smaller mega.
Yeah.
That's one of the sponsors of this charity.
Yes.
So it's one of those things. If you got a couple of bucks, throw it at it. We have tried to support Caleb every year for this because as we've said, everybody knows somebody that's been affected by cancer. It's terrible. We have a lot of things that we have to get through, especially in a year of COVID and all the things that we are dealing with right now. We're gonna have to help out one another. It's just that simple. If you take anything away from this book, it's that we have to help out one another. So I'm gonna get slightly like reason we made the book kind of thing. But this is one of the things that we support. We do Extra Life every year. We will do it again this year. We do a Catacon. We do a lot of these charity events, mainly because we feel like it's important. We feel like we have to do what we can. And so this is just one of the many ways that we try to help out friends and family. So if you've got anything that you can support, please, we got the link in the chat. We'll put the link in the notes down below.
And to answer the chat's question, yes, we're gonna put it in the Discord as well.
Spread it around to all of your Discords and things like that. So let them know that we sent them. Yep. So Caleb, thank you so much for joining us as always, my friend. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate everything that you've done for us since the beginning. You
helped us get over the line.
Yes, 100%. Like it's no short of saying like there are a few people that this
I
would
still
not
remember.
have been able to done.
Literally, we're 4 days from funding, and Caleb's like, these guys are like five baggers away, and then we hit it that afternoon, and I was like, oh, Caleb got us over the line.
Yep. So
right place, right time.
Hey, we always appreciate it. We will always be there when you need us. I hope you'll continue to ride with us. No pun intended for the My Pelotonia thing.
Hey, this is a great community. I'm glad we met up all those years ago. I'm glad we've kept going ever since, and it is always entertaining and a pleasure to hang out and spend some time together.
Oh, always a pleasure. Chat, thank you so much for joining us. This is our first stream, but we're going to be back next week as we lead all the way up to the actual launch of the live stream on, if I get my dates correct, September 9th. September 9th.
We're releasing we're releasing 4 episodes before that, right?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Guess what?
Sorry.
Guess what? You get another character episode on Friday. It's going to be Bunny Boy this time. You get to see the man, the myth, the legend, the man with the gators. Quite literally, it's a gator. He drives a gator. The doofus. You get to see him. We're going to release it on Friday. And then September 9th is the first live stream. Going into that live stream, we are going to release the 3-episode actual play that we recorded earlier this year, pre-COVID and all that kind of stuff. That sets it up. Give it a chance. Give it a look. If you haven't, go any podcasting app out there. We are literally everywhere now. Even Spotify took us, which is amazing. If they knew how trash and rubbish we actually were, they probably would have turned us away. But if you search IDENTECO, and if you search Angel City Stories on literally just about any podcast app out there, you will find us. And we've got some episodes already up there. Alex's character, Titus, is our latest episode. We do a little bit of a lore episode as well, where we answer different questions than we talked to Caleb tonight about, and we start to set everything up for the podcast, which I'm just going to say it right now. I'm actually releasing the first episode of it next week. So episode 1 of the podcast, the actual play where you meet everybody and we do some things, coming out next week. So go ahead. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't liked, if you haven't done all the fun things, it's up on YouTube as well. Go just give us love everywhere. That's all we need. We need love. We need more fringers to find us, all that good stuff, because we're going to give you a ton of content coming up soon. So we're going to get through this. And I think that's it. I think those are all the announcements I have. PlayIdentico.com if you don't already have stuff. We got merch up there. We got pins. We got all sorts of fun stuff up there too. There's my shill to make some more money so we can go pay artists to go make more stuff. It's just a cycle is all it is. So. All right. Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. And we will see you all again here next week. Mwah. I love you. Bye-bye.